Greetings, we'll cover a few details about Henry Ford and his life in a succinct manner. Here is a short rundown of his early years, education, career, persona, notable works, accolades, and demise. Known as Henry Ford, famous as the founder of the Ford Motor Company, born July 30, 1863, Springwells Township, Michigan, died April 7, 1947, Fair Lane, home of Clara and Henry Ford, Dearborn, Michigan, United States. Father, William Ford. Mother, Mary Litigott Ford. Siblings, William Ford Jr., Margaret Ford, Jane Ford, Robert Ford. Spouse, Clara Jane Bryant. Children, Edsel Ford. Education, Detroit Business Institute Downriver, Bryant and Stratton College. He was a bright, inquisitive kid. When he was in his teens, his father got him a pocket watch, which he took apart and put back together on his own. He also used his friends' and neighbors' watches as practice, and in no time at all, his reputation as a watch repairman in his community had spread. He also displayed leadership characteristics from a young age. In 1876, his mother passed away, leaving him heartbroken. He no longer desired to reside on the farm, following the death of his mother. In 1879, he left his home to work in Detroit, as an apprentice machinist with James F. Flower and Brothers. Before going home in 1882, he later worked for the Detroit Dry Dock Company. When he returned home, he began helping out on the family farm and mastered the use of the Westinghouse portable steam engine. His technical abilities were recognized, and Westinghouse recruited him to maintain their steam engines. In 1891, the Edison Electric Illuminating Company hired him as their night engineer, due to his mechanical aptitude and capacity for learning new things. He thought the job was quite interesting, since it gave him the chance to learn more about electricity, which was still a relatively new idea at the time. By 1896, Ford had become the Illuminating Company's chief engineer thanks to his tenacity and drive. He began working on making cars, which he had always been fascinated by, in addition to his job at the company. Together with several buddies, he created the quadricycle, a self-propelled vehicle. The car had a tiller for steering and 4-wire wheels that resembled large bicycle wheels. There were no reverse speeds, just 2 forward ones. Thomas Edison, whom he met, endorsed his experiments. Ford was inspired to keep improving his automotive design, and in 1898 he finished building a second one. Ford then made the decision to launch his own business, and quit his employment. In 1899, he established the Detroit Automobile Company. The company did not, however, have good success selling their cars on the market. He was soon compelled to close the company. He then began focusing on raising the caliber of his vehicles. In October 1901, he ran a 26-horsepower car with success. Then, in November 1901, he joined forces with the shareholders of his Detroit Automobile Company to establish the Henry Ford Company. Ford eventually left the business, nevertheless, as a result of some disagreements between Ford and other owners. The business was renamed the Cadillac Automobile Company after Ford left. Despite the failure of yet another endeavor, he persisted in following his passion for creating autos. Over the coming years, he constructed a number of race cars, notably the 999 Racer, which appeared to have a lot of potential. Henry incorporated the Ford Motor Company in 1903. Among the earliest investors were John S. Gray, the Dodge brothers, Alexander Y. Malcolmson, Henry Ford, and others. Around this time, race car driver Barney Oldfield traveled the nation in the 999, popularizing the Ford name across the country. The Model T was introduced by the business in October 1908. The car had a steering wheel on the left, which other automakers quickly imitated. The vehicle's ability to be both inexpensive and simple to operate helped it become a huge success. The vehicle's repair was also simple and inexpensive. The Model T was so popular that Ford had to significantly increase production to keep up with the rising demand. Ford and his team created a moving assembly line for cars in 1913 in order to satisfy the demand. The business created mass production methods, which allowed them to significantly increase their output. For a while, the Model T ruled the auto industry. Model Ts made up 50% of all automobiles in America by 1918. Ford gave his son Edsel Ford the presidency of the Ford Motor Company in 1918, although he still held the final decision-making power. The Model T sales started to fall down by the middle of the 1920s. As a result, the business unveiled the Ford Model A in 1927. The corporation continued to lose money, despite the new model's success up until 1931. In the U.S. market by 1936, Ford Motor Company had dropped to third place, trailing General Motors and Chrysler Corporation. Henry Ford believed in peace. He opposed American involvement in the Second World War, which began in 1939. The death of his son Edsel from cancer in 1943 was a tragedy for the elderly Ford. After his son's passing, Henry Ford formally took back leadership of the business, although he no longer had complete control. He was mostly ignored, as others made the important judgments. Henry Ford II, his grandson, eventually took over as company president. The Ford Motor Company, which Henry Ford founded, transformed the auto industry. Under Ford's direction, the business created processes for the large-scale production of automobiles, and the large-scale management of an industrial workforce. It is currently the second-largest automaker with a U.S. base. In 1928, Ford received the Franklin Institute's Elliott Cresson Medal. Ford received the Grand Cross of the German Eagle, a Nazi Germany accolade presented to foreigners who supported the regime, in 1938. In 1888, he wed Clara Jane Bryant, and the two of them had a son they named Edsel. At the age of 83, Henry Ford passed away from a brain hemorrhage on April 7, 1947. In Detroit's Cathedral Church of St. Paul, his funeral was held. His lifeless remains were interred in Detroit's Ford Cemetery.